And with me is my comrade in the basement,
Brendan LaSalle at your service. We have the
and
wrong
we are
document up.
and we are here to entertain you, hopefully for the next hour, talking as we normally do about the intersection with gaming and popular culture, which has kind of become our jam. I don't know quite how we got there, but here we are. We're just going to
We're
embrace
here
it.
though.
There's other people
Excuse
doing
me.
doing things better. Before we kind of get into the meat of the show, what's up, Brennan? How you been, man? We've
Oh,
kind of been delayed. We haven't there was
yeah,
stuff going on this month for various, we got
yeah.
preempted a couple times, but we're back. So
We got.
so it feels like it's been a month since we chatted. So
It really has. I'm doing pretty well, and I want to quick before we get started. I want to give a quick shout out. Happy National Gorilla Suit Day Eve to all those who celebrate. Find a partner and pick those knits. Okay, I'll see you. I see you
ev-
all.
every year I say this is the year, and every year I fail. So it's just like
Yeah,
next year maybe.
Gorilla Suit, baby. There you go. I've been good. How about you? How have you been?
Busy.
Yeah,
very, very, very busy with stuff. Obviously just trying to keep free RPG day is, believe it or not, that's a couple of months out, and preparing for free RPG day requires a lot of work. So I've been very busy getting that stuff together. So I've not
yeah,
had a lot of time to do fun stuff, is what unfortunately what I have been very
yeah.
work. I have not, for example, had to go do hang out with crazy cat peoples. So it's so
And that's a shame. Even though that was a work thing, that was a really fun work thing. So this past weekend, I went to the crazy. You got me crazy. I went to the Crazy Book Lady in Ackworth, Georgia, and did a DCC demo event there. So Crazy Book Lady it's just like it sounds. Used bookstore, the whole thing, piles of books, store cats, crazy people, but they have a really crazy good section of DCC stuff. Like less now because a lot of it got people like bought up over the weekend, but new and used gaming stuff, so it's great. So had a good game, played with a few people with their very first time gaming, and had a hilarious time. So
I'm
if you're in
so
Ackworth.
how did they like the how did the new people enjoy DCC?
I had uh, very much. They really, really enjoyed it. And I had two people who had never played a role playing game before.
Wow.
That was cool. That was like, you know what I mean? It did make for some slow moments, and like that you can picture the two of them. They're sharing a dice set. There were a couple, and they drew a dice chart, and like so they had all the dice there because they kept getting confused over which was which. It was adorable.
Oh,
So it was a lot of fun. So a big shout out to all my friends at Crazy Book Lady in Ackworth. I'm going to try to go back again. I'm going to try to go every month. It's not far from me, and it's wonderful. And then I go and look at all their books and go, oh, I must have this. This must be mine now.
so
I got a new Harlan Ellison over the weekend. I was like,
well, like a new or like a
well,
new.
no, it was from beyond the grave, writes Harlan Ellison. Anyone can do
Was
it.
Aaron Harlan still kicking around,
No,
did
he
he?
passed. Yeah,
I think Harlan's too crotchety to pass. I
I
just
know, right? He's like, just yelled at God until, I hope I'm right about that and not like claiming people are not alive.
if not, I'm sure you get an angry letter from Harlan, and he will log in live just to yell at us. Some of you out there in TV land, check to see if Harlan Ellison is still alive,
Yeah,
and so let us know. I think you're right too, but you
yeah.
never know these kinds of things. So, all right, well, it sounds like you had a good time, and good. What did you run, by the way?
I ran Neon Nights. I'm running it. I'm running it at a soon an upcoming convention. So I decided I hadn't broke that one out in a while. So I thought I'd give it a run so I don't go in cold next month
Mhm.
for Murder HoboCon. So don't forget to show up for that, y'all. And turns out that might not have been imagine your first adventure is a non-linear weird world trafficking thing where good guys are bad guys and bad guys are good guys. Maybe it might have been a lot for new players to start off with, but they were very, very game and they did a very good job. So I had a lot of fun.
Well, at least it wasn't the first one. Wasn't Love Mutants of Castle Harding?
No, they weren't ready for that. Oh, I thought about running that though. I thought I'm at the point with that adventure. I'm so excited to like just like break that out whenever I can.
Oh.
Um,
Well,
but
let's not
yeah,
talk too much about it because we'll be talking about that next week on Ball of Mike. So guess what? I will be having a special guest. It will be just like this, but with different backgrounds. So,
yeah.
so all right. Well, why are we here tonight, Brendan? As we mentioned, this show is about where gaming and pop cultures intersect, and we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, something
Mhm.
we always seem to talk about when we're together.
Yes. Music and gaming, gaming and music, music and gaming. This is finally our music episode. And hey, Bubble on there rising. Thank you for your subscription. You are awesome. We appreciate you. But
Welcome,
yes,
Bubble.
I know we finally get to do our music show, which I'm super excited about. I just couldn't be more excited.
Yeah.
Mike is here's the thing. There aren't a lot of like a lot of DCC or like let's say a lot of gaming fans. They sort of fall into a couple of categories of music. But Mike is like myself, where he has these huge, big range of musical taste and interest. Mike actually has a really like you were telling me that you really know your doo wop, which is like you're the only person in the world I know who really knows their doo wop.
I did, yeah. My father is not to blame for that, but I grew. He was very much a child. He and Stephen King would have gotten along great because they have a lot of the same musical taste. So yeah. I've always been exposed to music from a young age. The mother of one of my best friends growing up. She was a professional singer. She performed on actually the 2001 soundtrack. She like they were not obviously not this, but they have like the big vocal chorus. She was one of the voices on there.
No
Her
way.
husband was a professional trumpet player. So like it's just been around the entire time. My parents not so much, but I got kind of exposed to it from various other stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just I've always kind of been interested, and as I get older and older, I'm trying to stay younger and younger. So I'm just trying to keep exposing myself to new influences. But so we're going to talk about some of that stuff here tonight, and basically what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about music and its impact on gaming, whether that be maybe as an inspiration, whether that is whether it's used as we call set dressing, or as part of running a gaming session, or basically any sort of other influences. So I figure we'll probably start at the beginning. But when I say beginning, I'm going to say the beginning for Brendan and I and other gamers of a certain age. So if you kind of got into gaming in the late 70s, early 80s, you're probably going to be speaking our language. If you got started a little earlier, maybe there'll be some different thoughts. And if you got started obviously later, there are other. But there was a time, believe it or not, when it was not easy to get good gaming music. Like we didn't have like Sirenscape, you didn't have like Midnight Syndicate, you didn't have actually, people who were professionally recording gaming music. So
Mm-hmm.
you basically had to take whatever you could get.
Mike couldn't be more right. And you would wind up like, at least when we were kids, like a record album was a really big deal. Like, we're pre MTV even. You couldn't even have that on in the background with JJ Jackson yapping. So like the gaming albums you had, they tended to be really precious, and you would have them, and you'd kind of play the same couple of records over and over and over. It's a different world.
Hmm. And so I think if for the number one, and the number one gaming album for like the early to mid 80s and thereon, I think it goes without saying, Basil Poledouris's Conan the Barbarian soundtrack.
Yeah.
I
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's the equivalent of the free square in bingo. Like if you were going to put together like the musical, gaming bingo things, like that, everybody gets to stomp that one off. That's
Word. Yeah.
because it's not only was it great music, but it's a soundtrack. So you figure out early on that soundtracks are like the best gaming music whatsoever, because there's not really any sort of talkie to get in the way of when you're doing talkie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in high school, I think every D&D gamer had a copy of the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack. I think it's safe to say. So,
I got to admit, I came to it late. Like to me, that was like a college thing. I finally started gaming with somebody who had no. Actually, it was like the gap year after I left college the first time. That was when that wound up being on in the background. You know, that it was like that in the Highlander soundtrack. But those were it's if you have not, you must, gamer, you must.
mhm. Right. Yeah. So there was, of course, the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack. I would say that another one. I actually, I'm gonna call you Bubble because we're that good of good friends or anything. You're close to something because there's actually two soundtracks which I was also going to mention with the same breath as Conan the Barbarian soundtrack, and that of course is Queen's Flash Gordon soundtrack and the Highlander soundtrack. Both of those
Yes.
have some banger tunes on it.
Oh my god. Yeah. The Queen soundtrack was one of the like okay, I inherited a lot of records from my parents and things, and they had some great stuff when I was a kid. But like there was a point where I was like, that was the first album I begged my parents to actually buy me was the Flash Gordon soundtrack. And that's always on in the background.
We had when I was years ago when I was living out in Los Angeles in the early '90s. We didn't have a television set, so it was me and I was living with two brothers. Younger brother went to college with me, so we were same age and everything. And we didn't have a television. We didn't know cable. No, we too broke to go to the movies and everything. So on Saturdays, we used to put on the Queen. We used to put on the Flash Gordon soundtrack, and of course that actually has dialogue from the movie.
Yeah.
In between, and we would reenact Flash Gordon in our living room.
Oh my, that's so awesome.
Just
Colitis,
kind of
I'm
like jumping on the
bold.
couch, like all stupid crap. But it was, I mean, that's what we did for. That's what we did for. I mean, I can still do the
Oh
opening
yeah.
narration of like, Crichton, I'm bored. What plaything do you have for me today? Like I do the entire thing. It's like,
An
uh,
obscure bottom in the FSK system.
so I mean that is just it's the movie is it's a great movie for of its type. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's worth any awards, but there's just watching British actors chew the scenery, watching just watching the color palette of that movie. It is a period drama. It has elaborate costumes and everything, and then they're just like, let's get Queen to do the soundtrack. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, that kind of breaks the rule of like the no talkie during the soundtrack. And Highlander also does the same thing, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, like Who Wants to Live Forever, and I mean, there's so much evocative stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
I think that falls in the type of music that you don't necessarily listen to during a game, but you definitely listen to that to get jammed up to like getting ready to
Yeah.
play or run a game. So
Oh yeah. I think that football fight. I think that's like one of the greatest gaming pump up songs of all time, and like I still will have that in my head during battle scenes. To this day.
are you talking about the football fight theme from
Yeah. Dun,
Flash
dun, dun, dun,
Gordon?
dun, dun.
Yeah,
With the 41, 42 height, and it's
are you men on the right pills?
so good, so good.
Yeah. And also kind of from that era, I'm going to bring up my third choice, which is of course the Excalibur soundtrack again, going back
Yes.
to something which is less less talky, but I mean there are just so many great cuts off of that.
Yeah.
I mean between whether it's in the Merlin's chant or the Igraine's Igraine's dancing tune. Like I think that like the one that she does the dance to, which is very it's it means a lot to a young boy.
Yes.
But that's
Still.
like default pub music, whatever there's something going on, and there's just such a great album. I mean, that was another one that you don't listen to that going into getting ready to play the game. You listen to that definitely during the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest advents of gaming music, of course, was the arrival of the CD.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right.
because
Yeah.
because otherwise you could queue up a cassette to one song and then anything after that, you was like, wait, hold
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I have a story just
Okay.
popped into my head. So this is totally true. So I had recorded the Stop Making Sense album by Talking Heads. And accidentally at one point I hit record on it, and you could hear a couple of seconds of our game. Like me and my buddies were like, "Oh, forget it, he's dead." And so it's like, "Oh crap, and they fix it." So like right in the middle of that one, we had just a moment. I had thought about that in years. We had a moment of a recorded gaming history of my probably 12.
There you go. That's it. I mean, it wasn't, and that stuff is golden, because
Oh,
there was
absolutely.
nobody, and not everybody had a camera in their pocket, and
No, different world.
shows or anything. But I think again, gamers of a certain age, we have like one or two pictures that somebody's mom took, or like and maybe that's about it. So
Yeah. No, you're right. Hey, you know what's I never knew this before, but one more thing you and I have in common. I also grew up without a TV. Like we didn't have a television.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
not
I had television when I was younger. It was when I got older and poor that I didn't have the
oh,
television.
I see.
When
Yeah.
like in the 90s, in the early 90s, I didn't have a television. I was living in Venice back when it was scary. Venice,
That's awesome. Yeah, for me it was when I was my parents didn't get a TV until I moved out. Because I was 17 when I moved out. So they didn't have I came back home and suddenly like dad's watching football. I'm like, I mean, lose your mind.
Thank God, Brenda's going. We finally get a television.
I know, right? Yeah, I swear it's true. I swear.
We don't have to feed that boy. We can afford a television now. That's it.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't even remember all the circumstances, but like when I was a baby, they had one, and then they got rid of it, and then it just was like gone. And I'd see TV at my friend's house. I wasn't a caveman, but like we didn't have it's just never around.
Hmm.
Good times.
So we mentioned kind of like three of the kind of that classic era. Do you have anything personal that we didn't bring up that is
I will, and I will say all of those are definitely great gaming records and records that have been involved with me. But I got some personal choices, some little like offbeat ones. Okay, so one of them, the first album that I really associated with gaming was Zebra's first album, Zebra. So when we were little kids, eventually we got the big kids in the neighborhood to let us join their D&D game, and like that's what they listened to. So like, and it'd be the cassette, like, over one side, flip it over, just all afternoon. And I can't hear Who's Behind the Door and not think of my Magic user from back in those days.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I was curious, because I have seen Zebra perhaps more times than anybody should. Not for good choice, just because they are a Long Island band, and
Yeah.
like there's a 75% chance if I'm going to see Blue Oyster Cult on Long Island, Zebra is opening for them. That's just the way it is. So I've seen Zebra because I'm going to go see Blue Oyster Cult. I've seen Zebra at least 6 times.
It's so cool.
Let's put it, I've been in the room while Zebra has performed at least 6 times. Like I wasn't necessarily there to see them. I mean, they were playing adjacent to me, but so when you were talking about Zebra's first album, and I'm like, there's got to be a story behind this, because it's like I'm like, well, what are we going to play on tonight's gaming series? We have the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack or Zebra's first album. It's like obviously it's less because it was something that you gained to. It was more of an association. It's kind of like you have a certain smell, like you smell something and it brings back a memory. This is, you hear Zebra's album, you bring back all the memories.
Yes.
No, okay.
Exactly. Except that, like, that one song, Who's Behind the Door, kind of has cosmic overtones and makes me think of wizardry, and it's kind of clericy too. But yeah, mostly that was a personal choice. But that was like, I can't hear that first record and not like get sucked back into that game we played when we were kids,
I guess it kind of works too if you're doing a dungeon crawl. Who's behind?
Oh.
I will roll to see if I hear them.
Yeah, no, totally. So another one. So later on, when we started playing Vampire, like all of a sudden we were all artsy, right? So we got the classical music is underrated for gaming, and Chopin's Nocturnes. We got the CD of that, and that became like a permanent like a feature of my buddy Pete Nice's vampire game. We'd always have that on in the background when we were playing. It's like the only there's very little classical music that I could say, oh, I know what this is when it comes on. If it hasn't been, if it's not that, or if it wasn't on Bugs Bunny, you know what I mean? Like I don't,
Right, right.
But yeah, Chopin's Nocturnes when we were already D&D Vampire the Masquerade kids.
I think we'll be getting into Vampire a little bit more before the hour is over, because that's one of those, it was one of those watershed moments about where music and gaming. So
yeah.
So maybe we want to hold off on your third one.
Okay.
Too. That's more that kind of, this was like the laying the foundation of it, because
laying the foundation. Absolutely.
This was kind of like the early, like the early 80s and everything, and there wasn't a lot of music tied into gaming at that point. And I think about reason why, and I think a lot of that because like fantasy role playing was, that was a big denominator. I mean, obviously there have been, there was other stuff, there was Traveler going on, but like, as now, back then the lion's share of anybody playing a role-playing game was some sort of fantasy role-playing game. So so obviously you were going for something that kind of evoke that, whether it was like Deep Purple or Black Sabbath or something like the Wizard, or everything, but I think the kind of the first time that I noticed a gaming company getting like actually kind of beginning to bring those two elements together was when TSR put out the Dragonlance series, and for the first time they actually, I remember the very first Dragonlance module, they actually had a song that was in the back of the adventure that was it was kind of tied into the plot, and it was actually published with sheet music. So you could, if you knew how to play, you could actually take this and you can play it on your guitar, you can play it on your piano, you can actually do this. And if one of your friends or your gaming group or something was, good enough, had a good enough voice, you could theoretically record this and then play this at your gaming table, And they came out with a source book for it later on called Leaves from the End of the Last Home. And they had like, I was thinking like 5 or 6 songs that were in the back. And
cool.
I had actually talked to, I was like, I was always wondering this, and I was talking to Frank Benser at one of like a Gary Connor TSR, and he was an old folkie, and he played guitar, and he was the one who basically, if I remember correctly, like composed all the music for this and wrote it out. So I think that was the first time that I actually remember, those two elements coming together. But of course, at that time, that was basically the only way you could disseminate music as well. Like you would, it was, I mean, like TSR, they might be putting out a wood burning kit, but they weren't like putting out like albums at this point. CDs were coming later, but I mean, that was very much the, it was still kind of putting everything together, and you kind of left to your own devices. So so I think that was a big moment, but not nearly as much moments as something what we were talking about a little just moments ago, and that of course is going to be 1991, and when Vampire the Masquerade came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that changed. I think that literally changed the landscape of the combination between gaming and music. I mean, I remember that was the first. I think because it was set in the modern era. It wasn't like fantasy or science fiction or anything like this. So you could use all of those cultural touchstones that everybody was familiar with. So when they were trying to build that setting, you had literally song lyrics from like popular songs that like inserted into the rule book, and you're like, okay, this is very much this is like
different world,
perfect merging for everything. And the fact that like White Wolf was selling Vampire as taking place in the gothic punk world, I mean, you literally have two musical, like, how are you going to describe this getting? Well, you got gothic music, you got punk music, you put them together. Like, literally, it was like, like at that point, it was like there was no turning music and gaming aside anymore. And I think strangely enough that's also the same time where gaming got a certain cachet for the first time, not to what it has obviously now, but it was kind of like getting out of the basement for the first time. And as you were saying, like, that you started listening to Chopin because it was like suddenly it was like artistic, and there was like that theatrical element that was going into it. And I don't think you would have had that without like the music, the influences of like, you me was like the punk rock scene, and and obviously there was people were more in the goth scene. That was not me, but
I
mean,
a lot of Stitches of Mercy, a lot of Peter, what's his name, from Bauhaus.
Peter Murphy.
Bauhaus, Peter Murphy from Bauhaus, like that,
Yeah. So I think really that is, I think from that point, and I may be wrong, but White Wolf put out music from the Succubus Club. They actually they released a soundtrack to their role playing game, and it wasn't just like 8 dudes, like recording a song. They had actually licensed. There's like I think it's like a Susie and the Banshees song on there.
Is that right?
Yeah, I
I
have like
never heard that.
somewhere. They're not like huge bands, but they are, their level of it to like, you would have heard these, heard of them. Especially if you were kind of in like, the goth and industrial, kind of scene at that time. So that I think that was that was definitely a sign that the streams had crossed at that point. And
Yeah, yeah.
and once that door opened, I think that leads us to where we are now. I'm going to say filk bands, they were around this beforehand, but again, they were the kind of things you only saw at like a sci-fi convention or a game convention. They hadn't really gone mainstream the way that White Wolf managed to kind of to bring those two elements together. And it's funny, because I was thinking, White Wolf, of course, they put out 5 different storytelling games plus everything, but all the rest of them, they were not tied into kind of that musical background as much as Vampire was. And I think that has a lot to do with the settings, vampires, nightclubs, being around that nocturnal scene, everything. I think it just tied together very well. So yeah, so that it was that at that point, I think everything that we're experiencing now can be tied to that, because that was the first time I started using music as a regular part of my gaming, mostly because it's like my musical library, like I could basically pull off of anything. It's like I wasn't restricted to those 8 albums anymore, and they were now on CD.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say that this also coincided, maybe not directly, but they were within the same spitting distance of Napster.
Yes, you're not far. Yeah, you're not far off from that. And that was it's so funny. I remember like, I worked at Amazon.com when Napster hit, and it was like huge all of a sudden. And like we had this huge bank of like MP3 suddenly that anyone could access there. And I remember at some point, like someone like mentioning that it was all illegal. I'm like, what do you mean illegal? It's all right here. It's how can that possibly be what? So yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, that changed everything.
I mean, the arrival, being able to burn a CD at home with basically any song that you could get, as long as somebody somewhere was seeding it. I mean, I think that definitely blew the doors off it when you weren't restricted to anything anymore, and everybody became their own DJ. Like you were a master and a DJ. That was it.
You are 100% right, man. Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right. I think that a lot of having the CD age and the CD burning age let you sort of like create your own soundtracks for gaming. We did that so eventually during all of this, eventually X-Crawl happens. X-Crawl has always been very heavily about music, and we started off. I had now you kids aren't going to know what this is, but we had a 5 CD changer. So what we would do is we would put like I would give each one of my players would pick one CD, and that would be their character's motif, so to speak. And then I would have a couple of other ones. My other 2 that I would go to, one was Jock Jams, because that was so on point. Like every song on there you hated, but like it felt like sports. You know what I mean? And like I eventually it got voted out of the house, and it's like something. If I hear Gary Glitter one more time, we're breaking the lease. I swear to God, but the other one was there's a guy that did music for video games, put out his own album, and it's called Fat Man and Team Fat. And the album was very weird. It had music all the way through, but had one song on there by Fat Man and Team Fat, which was called Mr. Death. And that is the song of X-Crawl. And it's like this weird, like, it sounds like you're sneaking through a dungeon. It's really quiet and spooky and weird. And it's, basically it's about like living with and making your peace with Mr. Death, because he's around every corner, So that became like, that was when the music was so tied into what we were doing at the table that you couldn't divide them anymore,
Do you is this have you checked to see if Fat Man and Team Fat is on Spotify? Is that something that you can revisit, or you know?
Um, I still have it on CD, but actually there you know what, I can listen to all those on YouTube. I have all of his stuff.
Oh, okay, all right, nice.
Yeah, and it's his stuff. I mean, it's video game music, but it really runs the gamut. So he's got like songs. Half of that record are like kid songs from like kid video games, you know. And there's "Come to Hawaii," "Come to," like it's one of those. They're almost like Ween, where they have they can kind of do work in any mode, and they do, and they have it together on one record. But that was the one song that like was just Fat Man and Team Fat.
So Tim White, it's a song. He had a question: is Mr. Death the band of the album? It is the song by Fat Man and Team Fat.
Yes, it's Fat Man and Team Fat, and the album, I think it's called 7-Eleven or 24/7-11 or something like that. And
the Crawl by.
It's basically, I actually emailed Fat Man. That's not his real name, turns out. And like told him about it. He was very gracious. He wrote me back a very lovely response.
My ex took me to go see Big and Rich at one point. It was and yeah. I could not remember the name of them afterwards. It was like what you guys say, like Tall and Fat. Like it was like I could not remember like asked me what we did last night. It's like Bill and Stinky. I don't remember. We just saw some man. That's it. I have to say, man, I had forgotten about the 5 CD changer thing. It had been so long since that is the solution to any house party. That's it. You just pick 5 discs, put it on it, hit shuffle, and that's it. That's it. We'll walk away.
That's your whole night right there.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally true. Totally true.
I think at Goodman game we should invest in the 5 8-track player. I think that's what we need to. We need to get on that technology right now.
Like and just Foghat.
Hawkwind,
Hawkwind, Nazareth, and more Foghat.
I had a buddy of mine in college. He was a couple of years older than me, one of those returning students, but he had a radio alarm clock 8-track player.
Wow.
He could wake up to Radar Love at any time he wanted to. It was a gorgeous time right there.
Good man. That's awesome. Oh.
So.
All right. So okay, let's talk about like music that's actually like influenced your game design stuff. Like what have you actually, where is the connection in your head between music and the actual adventures that come out?
Sometimes it is a matter of actual direct kind of sometimes there'll be a song lyric. And sometimes it's a misheard song lyric, which actually works better. Like I'll hear something and be like, that sounds like a great premise of it. It's like, and that will be enough to maybe it's like a cool City of Glass or something. Like if I misheard Blondie, or something, and then something, and then there's just an idea that kind of rolls right off of that.
That's cool.
But so that that gets we get lots of that. And sometimes it's just a game that I play is because I have this thing where I sneak in Blue Oyster Cult references to various songs, to various stuff I work on.
Awesome.
It's like my first Christmas, the first holiday was the Old God's Return, and that was me just making a possessive out of a plural. That was because of one of their albums, one of their more recent albums. They had the song "The Old Gods Return" plural, and I just stuck a little apostrophe in there and turned in "The Old Gods Return," and there we go. So
yeah.
So it's I can't really say that there's ever been like I'm going to write a adventure based on a song, like based on like the whole thing, I wouldn't write like the adventure that goes along with like Rush's The Necromancer, although I'm sure people have, and
guaranteed.
So you pronounce that however way you wish to that you want. No. So how about you? I know obviously you have gone to the Black Sabbath font on more than one occasion.
I have, and I'm going back. I actually there's something about dungeon crawl classics without trying, and the fact that like the main writer is Joseph, quote unquote, Phish Goodman. Somehow DCC strikes me as the most metal game, without even trying. And like from the first time, I'm a big Dio fan, and from the like whenever I opened up the first time I opened up the actual core book, it was like, oh, like every page sounds like Dio to me, and I like so yeah, so I instantly thought, oh, I wonder if he'll let me do an actual Black Sabbath themed adventure. And he said yes to Hole in the Sky readily enough. And then I've since then put out Neon Nights, which is another Black Sabbath one. I was talking about it earlier. And I actually have multiple other ones. Like I got like several that have yet to see the light of day, but that I play around. But I've been running Planet Caravan for ages. We played my Planet Caravan adventure for 1000 Insane Worlds, and I do one for Into the Void and Behind the Wall of Sleep. And I actually this year I let the guys from Long Con. I said, give me a Black Sabbath song, and I will write an original adventure based on that just for Long Con. And they were like, sign to the Southern Cross, and I was like, all right. And actually, the adventure I came up with, I was really happy about. And then I caught COVID and couldn't go. So I'm saving that for next time I make it to Texas. So Brent likes coffee. Oh, yeah. Our chief CEO of Goodman Games, Joseph Goodman, loves the fish.
I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I always kind of like laugh to myself whenever people are just like, DCC is so metal, it is the most metal game, and I'm just like, well, if it is, it was
in the cool shades of the banana tree. There was luggage.
having created something and then giving it off to the world and see what it has become. That is very much DCC. It's like,
yeah.
So. It definitely, the metalheads grabbed it and they ran with it, and that's fine.
God bless, and it's home. That's where it belongs. Yeah.
I will say this is that this has never appeared in any of the things I've actually written, but one of the ongoing things which pops up in my personal games when I'm running like a modern kind of a cult, anything the creepy stuff or anything like that. I have the ongoing thing which often gets referred to is Project Sleeping Village, which was because Sleeping Village off of I think it's the original Black Sabbath is there's
oh yeah.
So that sounded like Sleeping Village always sounds to be like the slightly sinister name that like a government conspiracy would give to something. So,
yeah.
So it's like Project Sleeping Village is the one that gives you fire starter powers or anything else. It's like so.
Yeah, that would actually be a really cool thing to like as your base of operations. Sleepy Juncture. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
God, I have that. I gotta pull that one up in a minute.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of when we were alluding back before about like Filk, where you have music, which was you have like performers, musicians who are writing music based on science fiction or fantasy or something like that. It's essentially whether it's the pendulum or time is a flat circle or whatever it is. I think we've gotten to a place where I found it very interesting is that now we have music that was influencing gaming, whether that be as the soundtrack or as we were talking about, like song titles or something else would feed into it. Now we have reached a point where gaming is actually inspiring songs,
which is insane. Can we admit that that's insane? That this is a crazy time we live in, and an amazing time.
So, obviously, if you've been hanging around with DCC for a while, you have probably heard of Loot the Body. So
love.
We have Sailors of the Starless Sea. We've actually, we have, which totally blows my mind. The fact that it's just like we're through the mirror at this point, people. We're on the other side of the looking glass. So.
It's and I recommend everybody. I did the Loot the Body. I've got their, I don't know, like I'm like everything that comes out, I follow up. They're really, really, really cool. They have a very neat, just check out Loot the Body. Go. Everyone has nerd homework tonight. Loot the Body. Go check it out. We love them and they love us, and we can't get enough.
And if you want extra credit, go out and get yourself a turntable, and then order the Loot the Body Flexi disc from the Goodman Game Show, and go and listen to the Flexi
Yeah.
on your newly acquired turntable at home. That's
That's awesome.
but,
All right, so check it out. So obviously we both, we're both very much influenced by music. But what do you listen to when you're writing?
okay, well, that definitely goes back to the rule of we cannot have talkie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because the lyrics will just take me out of whatever I'm working on. I need something that's going in the background, and and I can't. It can't be. I can't listen to. Yes, I'm giving you permission to buy another turntable, as many as you want. It can't be, and it can't be too heavy. It can't be something like, I can't, like, I'm sure it's like once you kind of get into that the writing mindset, other distractions are just going to take it out. So it's just got to be something that I can absorb subconsciously and everything.
Yeah.
But that being said, is that I will of course try to coordinate what I'm writing with what I'm going to be listening to, and even if that's like on the subconscious level. And I've been very open to the fact is that when I was working on the Lankmar line, when we was writing the original box set and just kind of transporting Libra's stories into a gaming medium, I listened to, basically I had on terminal repeat was the soundtrack for the HBO series Rome, because it was a soundtrack, and the music on that was like they were trying to capture, obviously they didn't have sheet music from Rome, but they were trying to get that kind of that Mediterranean influence. So you had stuff which sounded like it was coming from the Near East, and something was very, so you had a lot of mixes of musical styles, which created this kind of goulash, the gumbo of music. And that is kind of always how I pictured Lankmar. So it felt very, there was like weird instruments going in the background and everything like that. So I think that was very productive when I was working on it. And I've said, people, like, if you're looking for like a soundtrack to play, that's what I was writing it to. And you can, if you can, I don't know if it's still available, because the Rome the series is long over. But you might be able to find a copy of it somewhere. But yeah, but that had a lot to do with when I was doing that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can do words, but it has to be records that I've played so many times and I know so well that they go in one ear and out the other. So I'll do records like that. To me, like my baseline writing record, like if I'm just going to do general writing, Aerosmith's Pump, I don't recommend it, but I really can't. But it was a record I heard a lot when I was younger, and it just, I can put it on, and it's like the chocolate milk of rock and roll. It just kind of whoosh, goes right through me. I don't think about it, but I've got it there to keep me company. But for me, like I feel like every project I winds up first trying to find a genre, and then trying to find an album, and then sometimes even just a song that I will listen to on repeat again and again, And for example, I won't talk too much about it, but the Valentine's Day adventure that we just did, like I thought I made up this boss soundtrack of all these heartbreak songs and breakup songs and such, and it was just distracting. Like I couldn't focus on it. I tried jazz for a while, like sad, sweepy jazz, and then eventually I landed on a Grateful Dead song, Terrapin Station, and like just listen to it on repeat for, the last 2 weeks of writing. Like listen, pretty much when I was at my desk working on that thing, I had that song on almost constantly, and it definitely kind of informed like the vision of this spooky castle heartache, but it didn't, it doesn't thematically have anything to do with it, but it was just the right vibe. And sometimes vibe is bigger than anything else,
Right. No. It's funny that you mentioned Aerosmith Pump, because this is I have an Aerosmith connotation with writing, but it's not with gaming writing. In that ongoing quest that every writer has for that succinct use of language, like how to convey the most amount of information in the shortest line possible, Steven Tyler accomplished that to perfection in Sweet Emotion. And
oh yeah,
that line, the line which I think was, if I had to put on, pulled into town in a police car. like that. There is so much loaded into that sentence that I'm just like, okay, that's perfection as far as I'm concerned. That's
Yeah.
so.
No, I get it. And yeah, it's cool that I don't know. Say what you will about Aerosmith, but there's something to those old songs and having that old, that thing going. When I'm doing regular work, when I'm writing emails and just doing I have this great Pandora station I've created myself. That's right, I still use Pandora. I'm old, and it's Led Zeppelin and Tribe Called Quest, and then it's basically all the songs that go along with that. So I have this weird bouncy, it's classic rock, it's 80s 90s hip hop, and it just sends me, and like that keeps me going and keeps me going. That's my I don't know.
I think I think you are right. Is that it is often a matter of what you're working on and what you need to go in the background. It's it's like I'll obviously when I was doing the Chain Coffin stuff, I was listening to a lot of like like a lot. That was actually one of the few times actually I could listen to music that had lyrics, because there wasn't a lot of commercially available kind of bluegrass or folk or country or something like that, which was just strictly instrumental. So I was listening to like like Lead Belly and a lot of stuff like that. So I mean, it was a little bit of Sun House, and I mean, so there's a lot of blues and stuff, and there's I mean there are some instrumental blues, but not as much as you would, not as much as you would actually, you wouldn't expect there to be a lot, and you'd be correct.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to talk about the blues, purely on instrumental,
Yeah, no. When I did the Frog Holler, what's it called, the Incident Toad Fork, Frog Holler. I wasn't even close. When I did Incident Toad, right. Yeah, I found this. I was in bluegrass. I found this great like bluegrass album. I'll send it over to you. I'll send a link to you. I know. I want to say it's like literally like Appalachian bluegrass and folk songs of the, something like a very it sounds like some ethnographer's collection of music of the time. You know what I'm saying? But it really is exceptional, and like I did a lot of that.
Art of the Field recording, was it?
No, okay. I don't think so.
It was a 4-album set that I tracked down. They had everything like it was like blues and religious, and I mean, so it was very. Do you?
So, I'm pulling it up now. I'm working on it.
Nerd Geek Game, is that question directed to Brendan and I? Whether we write on Macs and do we use templates?
Sure. Okay. You go first. I'll find this.
No, because I know exactly what. I think I know a computer that Brendan works on, because I got the same one first, and then he said I need a computer. I said, well, this is what I'm using. No, I do all my work on a PC, and I do not use a template at all. My template is create blank document. I have template is that I have Word set up that it's Times New Roman 12 point.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing I got.
I do. My main computer is the same as Mike's. I do have a PC, but my laptop is a Macintosh. I also have an Alpha Writer that I use when I'm like out in the field sometimes, but I work longhand a lot as well. And I don't have templates, but I do have I have a couple of things that I have templates for stat blocks that I grab, and I can just populate my stat block things. I don't think they're really, I just cut and paste them out of it's not a real template. It's just something that I cut out of a larger document that I use. And I have one for spells and patrons and, different things like that, but it doesn't work like a spreadsheet.
But all right, so back to music.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. So let's hit the question people have come here, I'm sure, to want to know. All right, so we're going to, Brendan and I are going to list each of us are going to choose. We've chosen 3 gaming songs. All right, and these are we're going to lay these down on you. You're gonna have an interesting mix by time is over. So these are specific songs, not albums, not bands, or anything like that. So we have our reasons for picking this. It might not be the same reasons. So, Brendan, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Do you want to? What do you your preference?
I'll go first. I'm ready to go. Okay, so my first one, when I think of a wizard duel, there's the soundtrack to what that might be like with these two epic forces opposing themselves. Try Lightning Breaks by Wendy L. Williams and the Plasmatics, a muchly underappreciated metal record. A great record, and like Lightning Breaks is so cosmic and so loud. It's a record you want to listen to very, very loudly, but you'll love it.
I mean, we're gonna prove people wrong. Is that DCC is the most metal band whatsoever? I think nothing we're gonna give here is
I mean, that's a pretty metal Lightning Breaks.
It is. I would say Wendy is a little bit more closer to the punk than but yeah, I know that could be that's one of the things actually. In college, I was the punk head, and we had like a whole metal head, so it was definitely metal. I think I can argue that way, either way or the other. All right, So, all right, so that was. I am going to pull something from the back of the record collection, which was Brendan didn't even know about this one, and
yeah,
metal, which is not metal. I'm going to choose a song called 12-Sided Dice by a band called Dream Warriors. And that is not Dawkins' Dream Warriors. Dream Warriors is a hip hop duo that came out of Toronto of all places in the early '90s. You knew they were geeks deep down inside, because if you're writing a song called 12-Sided Dice, you know what a 12-sided die is, and B, you're going to sing a song that involves it because nobody else is using a 12-sided die at that point.
that's an awesome one.
All
right, so my number two.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm a big hip hop person. Mike actually is as well, and I had like a hip hop gaming group. Like we listened to a lot of hip hop when I was a kid. So there are songs I associated, but like the greatest of the hip hop gaming songs is a Scenario by Tribe Called Quest, which is you would know it if you heard it because it's on the radio forever. If you're of my age and you like hip hop at all, you would totally know it. But at one point, Busta Rhymes is on that record, and he comes up with "Rah, rah, like a dungeon dragon." And the first time I heard that, I like spit out my coat, like what the, like blew my brain up. I'm like, how does Busta Rhymes know about D&D? So always a very exciting thing for me, and I recommend Tribe Called Nerd Geek Gamer. Tribe Called Quest is the truth. I love that band, and I think everyone, more Geek Homer, but check that one out. It's amazing.
I love it. I love it when an established musician pulls something out and you mix it for that moment. You question their geek credit. It's like, I mean, the Pretenders, Back on the Chain Gang. There was the one line, "Trapped in the house like a pigeon from hell," and I'm like, are we quoting Robert E. Howard? Is that where we're going? Was that Pigeons from Hell? Is that Chrissy Hine? Come on, are you a geek? Are you Robert E. Howard? The question.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I mean, you see go either way, no. But speaking of bands who I know have geek credit is going to be my number two, and I went back and forth on this one, and because there's one which is clearly the more expected one, but I went the one which was more comprehensive and more covers more ground. This, of course, Blue Oyster Cult, a band out there who has actually worked with one of the Appendix N authors, one of the closest bands you get to an Appendix N band, veteran of the Psychic Wars, right? So I was gonna go with Black Blade, but what I said Black Blade very specific. I want to go, because veteran of the Psychic Wars is the kind of like the entire Eternal Warrior champion, the entire warrior, more cocky and thing, and I've always, of course, assimilated with like science fiction, because of course when you think of Psychic War, you think of Star Wars, but you're thinking like mental stuff, I think it's a great game.
Yeah. And the soundtrack to Heavy Metal too, which I can't believe it hasn't come up yet, but that's a great game.
Somebody mentioned it, but I think Bubble mentioned it way ago. I saw it in passing. So, yeah. I don't know if Shader. I don't know if I know Moorcock was involved with the writing of it, but I don't think he was the sole. I don't think he did sole writing credit on it. So, all right, Brendan, your third pick of the evening.
Okay, my third pick, this is a song that goes with my sci-fi gaming, okay, which I don't do as much as I would like, but one of my favorite, like bouncy science fiction things that always makes me, and this is a weird association, but I can't not hear this song and not think of like, rocket ship, planet, and sword kind of stuff. It's Sci-Fi Wasabi by Chibamato. They are a band I deeply love. That album, Stereotype A, was one of my, it's in my top 200 albums, and I'm a very serious music person, and I would put it up there. If you like sci-fi stuff, I mean, check it out. Chibamato is really interesting. They have a very weird sound. They sing a lot of songs about food. I mean, a lot. And Sci-Fi Wasabi is one of them. But it's got like, the lyric, Obi-Wan Kenobi told me in the lobby, which doesn't really rhyme until they say it weird. Which, it's a very good geek song with a neat beat to it. And, try it out for your sci-fi gaming needs.
Okay. All right. My final choice here. This is kind of going back to the same way that you have Zebra tied into your gaming story. This is a song which does not have anything necessarily specifically to do with gaming, but because of the circumstances with it, I will always associate it with, and that is Frank Black's Los Angeles.
Ooh, that's a great one.
Yeah. So when I was running my Vampire the Masquerade game in college, it was set in Los Angeles, and like this was the second one that I set, and I knew like that when I talked about this was where I used music for the first time. Every campaign had the theme song, and that was what we play. I would play that before we started the game session, just kind of like get us out of like the kind of what was going on and kind of focus on that. And since it was set in Los Angeles, and it's kind of about an alternate Los Angeles, and so it just. And it starts off with that very slow kind of acoustic thing, and then just kicks in and everything. And that's when the action started. Like that campaign started with like a skyscraper exploding. And my friend Dan was just like, that's the moment. Like if this is the animated credits to it, that's the scene where you just see the skyscraper go up, and then just everything leads out from there. So yeah, so it's.
This is the best, man. I'll tell you what. Honestly, this is why we always wind up talking about music when we hang out, because talking about music with you is awesome. We've got to do another episode because we're not going to get anywhere near to all the stuff we want to talk about.
Yeah, Brent and I, we have our choice of like desert island albums and everything, but we're gonna run out of time.
We're not gonna have time.
No. Maybe we can we'll do an entire show based on desert island albums. We had 3 of them chose. We can get, because it was a hard choice narrowing it down to 3. I tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of. Let's say I spent over long of my walking, my walking time thinking about that this week. So
that was kind of. I hope that we were able to discuss like the role of music and gaming. I hope at the very least, if you're able to walk away from the show and say, I'm going to check out that song, or I've never heard them before, or I'm going to go back and listen to that one. That's what we're here. We want to kind of spread the love that Brendan and I have for popular culture in the horse. I had a deeper catalog once upon a time, but I ever since I got Spotify, though, I just tell you, I mean, it's changed my life. Though I'm willing to throw the money every month, because it's just like, I vaguely remember that song when I was 14. I'm going to go find it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I do the same thing with YouTube. I pay I'm like a YouTube professional or whatever it's called, so I get no ads. And man, I'll tell you, everything's on there. Like, some days I'll be like, hey, Wichita Linemen. I wonder how many cover songs there are of Wichita Linemen. And then it just takes me away for a lovely hour or whatever the song is,
I love the thing I love Spotify is that people are, they put together playlists and everything. And I'm just like, I need something, but I have nowhere to start. So I would just go, like, lately I've been listening to like a lot of dark synthwave and vaporwave. I'm just like, and I'm just like, I have no idea where to start with this, but I've kind of fallen in this weird like electronic music, like not necessarily like EDM or anything, but just like this.
I get it.
All right, just kind of this, and I'll be at the gym listening to it, or out driving or walking or something. Like, okay, like,
yeah,
all right, I like this. I'd be hard to be able to like, like pick a specific song at this moment, because I'm still just kind of absorbing everything.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. So
I am like that with lo-fi, like lo-fi hip hop. Like I'll put that, like I'll just like lo-fi hip hop and just literally play whatever comes up and just be like, hey, this is groovy. Boom, boom, rain sounds and it's just like,
oh my. Yeah, my mom had a lot of new age albums when I was a kid, man.
Really?
I could do entire 15 minutes on Crystal Chambers of Atlantis. That's by Robert Slapp. But like this.
I don't even know that one. I know Jean-Luc Ponty. It's the only one I know.
All right. Well, we believe it or not, another hour has flown by here on Keep Crawlin.
How do we do it?
As everybody knows, we have a sponsor with every show, and guess who's going to sponsor this show, whether they know it or not? You guys,
Loot the body.
you guys have your homework. So you homework. Throw some love, loot the body way. We just we obviously they are part of the computer. They are part of the DCC community, so they deserve all the love and care we give to one another. So so that's it. We at this point, thank you all for tuning in. It was a lot of fun to hang out here with you for on a Monday. We will be back in 2 weeks, as far as we know. I think we are going to Love Mutants and Book of Fallen Gods. All right, great. Thanks, Bubble. I hope you enjoy it. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. But if you cannot wait for 2 weeks for Shenanigans with Mike and Brendan, next Monday is the first Monday of February. So Maw of Mike will be on, and I will be having my partner in crime on to talk about a little Love Mutants and Castle Heartache. So there you go. So in the meantime, everybody be cool, put on some cracker tunes, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. All right.